And here we go. Welcome everybody here with Sharon and Lynn, and we are looking at the book by Carol Howe called Never Forget to Laugh, and it is a biography of Bill Thetford, the co-scribe of A Course in Miracles. So welcome, Sharon. I'm going to get the book up in the screen. And might as well put that there just in case I play some music later. All right. So it's after Bill left New York and went to live in California, he also came to visit quite often with Carol Howe, who lived in Denver, Colorado. And she lives in Denver, Colorado now. It's pretty amazing, that she's just right up the road from me. Not that I'll probably ever get up there, but but
Yeah.
but it's good to know these people are here. But anyway, so he had never, this is what I think is really beautiful about this. He had never actually been outdoors. I mean, like, um, he had spent his whole life in the city and was not, a hiker or a climber. In fact, he had a heart condition, which made it difficult for him to do anything like that. But once he was free, and I think he quit smoking too. He had been a smoker, which, God, that's crazy. Because you think about, already having a weakened system like that and smoking, but he was, pretty good for that. But then when he would come to Colorado, um, then Carol would take him and they would go places. So here they were just talking about they went to Santa Fe to see Hugh and Gail Prather. They went to Aspen to the arts festival. They did all, and Aspen is really talking about high altitude. That's really high altitude up there. It's not quite where I grew up was 2 miles, 2 miles high, over 10,000 feet, almost 11,000 feet altitude. And Aspen is probably around 10,000 feet. So, that you talk about having a low oxygen area, that definitely is a place. But he went there and he, uh, he just lived his life. He just started living a life that he had never lived before because he had been either sick or living in the city and working really hard as a professor or whatever. And now he had access to a whole nother world. And so I'm really appreciating this uh, talk from Carol. So do you want me to read since you've just been reading? Yeah, okay. So Carol says, and there's a beautiful picture of her and Bill here in Aspen, Colorado. During our visits or on the phone, Bill and I rarely talked about the content of Course in Miracles. Certainly, we spoke of its effects on our lives, but mostly we just enjoyed the moment simply being together with appreciation and delight. A mundane accounting of everyday life was richer by far than grand philosophical discussion. Occasionally, however, we did delve into the meaning of certain concepts. Early on, I asked him about a sentence in the text, which says, quote, "Forgiveness is not real unless it brings a healing to your brother and yourself." And let me look here at the where this is, 23, page 569 in the course. So forgiveness is not real. Let's see. Um, Unless it brings a healing to your brother and yourself. Since I was fairly new to the course, there was much I didn't yet comprehend, including the fact that intellectual understanding comes after the process of forgiveness and not before. Presuming, and that's a really good thought because,
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
yeah,
Right?
mm,
Because it really does. You can't. Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, we try to understand it, and then think that we're going to get it from understanding, but our understanding, Jesus tells us, is not necessary. So the understanding doesn't come before the process of forgiveness. Once we've done the forgiveness, then we see the result of it. We see what it actually does. So yeah. So presuming everything was already clear to Bill, I asked him what it meant. He said he had no idea. I was floored and thought to myself, what do you mean you don't know what this means? I now realize that although he knew a tremendous amount about the course, he still retained unhealed grievances that would necessarily cause blank areas or blind spots in his comprehension. When the mind is not clouded with grievances, everything becomes obvious and simple. Ultimately, that sentence becomes perfectly clear. And so she kind of answered it right there, is that what it means is that if you have grievances, um, you can't uh, you can't know uh, what the healing that is forgiveness, because you're holding on to something. It's like you're holding a hot coal in your hand and you're saying, help, my hand is burning. And instead of letting go of it, you just keep saying, help, my hand is burning. And so this is what we're being asked. We have to let go, and then we see, then the healing can start. But until you let go of the grievances, which that we talked about this, we're talking about a lot of things in the world, and the recent election, which is a big topic. And I mean, 10 years from now, we're going to be saying the same thing. The recent election, I'm upset because
I mean, I was like, I actually like didn't have the same anger like I had before, but I'm, I just find it really interesting how our filters are all so different.
yeah.
You know, when
Well,
I
it's fear.
right, I mean, our
Yeah.
filters are just so different.
Yes, yeah. Well, and we can adjust the filter, and that's what I think we're really trying to do, is to adjust the filters by making it more uh focused. And
Right.
so that's what in the perception has a focus. And that's one thing that I think Jack was bringing up last night, which was really valid, is that what we're focusing on is what we're going to experience. And I think what he was thinking was that, which I've had this thought before in groups, that if we keep focusing on the problems that we're having with communication, then we're going to keep having the problems. But actually, the opposite of true. When we begin to see the purpose and the reason that we're having that that communication issue, when we begin to see, why we're not hearing what our brother's saying with true empathy, or expressing ourselves clearly, with a clear understanding of our situation. The reason that we're not doing that is because we don't really uh, know how freeing and wonderful it is to not be in fear.
I think it has to be fear though for me because I haven't let go of all my grievances, and I would believe that that's because I'm still afraid.
Right.
As the conscious in my consciousness, there's still fear of God. There has to be, or
Oh
else I
gosh, yeah.
wouldn't. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to die, and isn't that an indication that that you're afraid?
Well, yeah, I don't know about that, because I don't particularly want to die either. But I don't think it's because I'm afraid of what's going to happen after I'm dead. I'm afraid of what I'm going to miss when I'm
Well,
gone.
that's the best way to say it. No, you're right. You're right though, because that's really what it is. Because I don't want to miss my kid, my
Yeah,
family. I love them,
yeah.
and I enjoy them.
But it's really interesting, because Jesus tells us in the course, you're not going to miss anything. Everything is already still there. Everything is still here.
Well,
It's
we're
not
still,
like,
yeah, because
yeah.
we don't really go anywhere.
Yeah, all your loving kindness, everything you
Right,
ever loved is right here. It's not changing. Uh,
right.
but the only thing that's going to be gone are the things that make us sad, the things that hurt us and upset us.
Or
So
our memories, like just believing we're victims. That's just puts us in a hole. For
yeah,
me anyway, it puts me in a place of anger, and it's not a light feeling, it's a hard feeling, you
right.
know?
But think about this. How just don't freak out here. I'm just going to mention a scenario. Think about if you did not remember at all that your son was sick, that your mother was
Right.
upset.
Yeah,
What if you didn't remember any of that at all? That was not present in your mind, any of those thoughts. And
right.
you don't remember them, so you don't miss them.
Right. We're just you
And
hold on to
how,
them just so you can remain the victim.
yeah, and that's why what Byron Katie says, who would you be without that story?
Right. Right.
Because if you let go of that story and didn't have that in your mind at all anymore, then you would be a happy person all the time because
Yeah.
you would not have fear. There'd be nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah. That's, of course, I wouldn't be like, but in order owning the fact that I'm still afraid of love is really where it's at now.
Yeah. Yeah,
That way
I
I
agree
can,
with that.
I have to own it because if it's in me, it's definitely an issue. I
Yeah.
don't know it's conscious. I don't, but look at our lives. Look how fearful we are about not being liked by others, and how everybody wants. We hate rejection. We hate abandonment. All of that. When in fact, that's what this world does. It abandoned us from our Creator. You
Yeah.
know.
We walked out the door on purpose and then said,
Right.
"Oh, wait a minute. You
I don't
shouldn't
want to
have
go anywhere. Come back.
done."
Please
I'm
come
looking
back.
at my car.
I don't want to go yet. It's funny when my father was dying, he told me, like, I was sitting by his bedside and I said, "How are you, Dad?" And he said, "I'm scared." I said, "Well, that's normal." Because I wanted him to be okay with going. And I could see myself because he just said, "I'm so scared." And it was just sweet. It was just sweet. Anyway, go ahead. I'm going to listen for a little bit.
Okay, all right. Yeah, this is fun. I'm enjoying this tremendously. Okay, so when the mind is not clouded with grievances, everything becomes obvious and simple. Ultimately, that sentence becomes perfectly clear. And the sentence again is forgiveness is not real unless it brings a healing to your brother and yourself. So Carol continues, Bill and I sometimes meditated together, a precious way of relating that many others also shared with him. Both Robert Rosenthal and Roger Walsh have eloquently described their meditation experiences with Bill. So this is one. I recall in particular one meditation. This was probably in the early 1980s in his Tiburon apartment one evening. As we meditated, the room filled with a sense of utter stillness, a dense, loving, overwhelming silence that was a positive presence, not just the absence of noise. In my mind, I heard the words, "This is the peace that passes understanding." It was a concrete experience of peace, a peace and silence so certain, so absolute and impenetrable, it could not be disturbed by anything of this world, the peace of the Holy Spirit. Bill actually talked me into my first Kensho, or clear experience of egolessness. One morning, I was sitting with him in a restaurant by San Francisco Bay. We were talking about something spiritual, and although I don't remember the discussion, I do remember the experience. As Bill was describing something about the nature of spiritual practice, I felt a dramatic, progressive shift in consciousness. I had a sense of my awareness becoming focused in a simple point, which moved up and up in a spiral and became disentangled from the workings of the mind. Suddenly, there was no exclusive identification with anything. There was clear awareness without any sense of Roger or any separate self sense. There was a sudden recognition that the experience of egolessness that I'd been reading about all this time, a state the Course had been trying to get me to experience, is actually not a loss of the ego. Rather, the experience of egolessness is the recognition that the ego never existed in the first place. As I sat there, happily absorbed in this novel state, I described to Bill what had happened. Amazingly, as I described the experience to him, he started having it too. He moved into the same state, and we sat together for an hour or more in this shared Kensho experience, which he first talked me into, and then simply by describing my experience to him, he had moved into himself. It was a wonderful experience for us both, and it was striking that it was the relationship that had done it. Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
You know what I see? I see in this, when we think about it, the ego never exists at all because all we're doing is listening to our own thoughts, in this seeming world when and believing it's real, right?
Yeah.
Because the ego did. I've read this in so many books that the ego doesn't exist, and I was always thinking like, well, why are they telling us that we have to do this and that? But now I tell me if I'm wrong because I don't know. I mean, like
No,
the
I
ego,
think, yeah.
the ego's yeah, because it's not. There's no ego. The ego is just us talking to ourselves all day long. That's
Yeah.
it. And believing it's real and then making it a big deal.
Yeah, ego is a thought system. And so
Yes,
it's not a person or a being or anything.
right,
It's just a
right,
set of thoughts that are just floating in the dream. And
right,
and what we do is we connect to the thought. We will connect to the thought. I'm a mother. Connect to the thought. I'm a wife. I'm
right,
a whatever architect, engineer, whatever. That we connect to that thought. I'm a good girl. I'm a bad girl. I'm a smart girl. Whatever. I'm a girl. We connect to that, and then that becomes the structure of our experience. And
right,
so when we disconnect from those definitions, that the phrases, the words, what the thought system is trying to make me think I am, because that's what it really is. I mean, it's just making me think I'm this thing. So when I stop thinking that I'm this thing, then then I'm no longer connected to the ego. I'm no longer that thing. And I think this
right,
is what happened with this guy is he's just sitting there with Bill and listening to Bill, and he's set loose from this uh this thought system. He became disconnected. So that was Roger Walsh who that was. And you can do it. We can do that with each other. And I've done this, similar type things, being in meditations with people where you actually connect. And that's so much what the course is talking about, is that it's that connection with our brother that brings us into this state, because we cannot do it alone. It's impossible for me to um, to see myself in this way without seeing you in this way as well. And it's that connection. So, and I think it's very cool that, he brought that's, and the course also says that, if you're in your right mind, you can bring your brother into their right mind too. It's you know, that's why it's
just by
so,
simply being, right? Just by simply being.
just by simply being. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's real early on in the course. He talks about that
There's
it's
so
that,
many words in this course, it really takes time to really absorb all of it.
oh yeah, yeah,
It's there's some hidden gifts, you know. Okay, so then you want to continue? Yeah, you
yeah,
continue
I'll
and then
continue. Yeah, yeah. So okay, so let's see. So regarding the course, I did ask Bill about changes to the scribed material that were referred to briefly in the original write-up about how A Course in Miracles came to be. This was decades before any serious questions were raised about the editing process. First, he mentioned his amazement that Helen was able to leave the original dictation alone, given her tendency to be a particularly ferocious editor. She thoroughly edited anything that came her way, even a personal note. To be able to leave the material unchanged was astounding and completely out of character for her. At the beginning of the transmission, if she changed a word because she didn't think it was the right one, she inevitably went back and reinstated it. As the work progressed, she could see the necessity of the exact wording, and she specifically stated she didn't want to intrude upon what was unfolding. Bill explained that they deleted their personal material as well as comments about particular individuals, living or dead, that were interwoven with what became the text. Anyone familiar with the course notices that the first few chapters feel disjointed. Removing Helen and Bill's personal material left gaps in the flow of dictation, and some sentences had to be rearranged. But Bill assured me, and I believe him without question, that nothing substantive was omitted and that the basic message was in no way altered by their editing choices. And I just want to stop right there for a moment, because this is one of my big deals here, is that there are so many people who have accused Bill and Helen and Ken of lying about this material. And you just read this right now, Bill
Yeah, if you
saying,
could read that over, because you've mentioned that about, I know that when I mentioned, well, I don't want to put it on the thing, but the other
yeah,
guy,
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't
So
know this story.
anyone familiar with the course notices that the first few chapters feel disjointed. Removing Helen and Bill's personal material, which actually was Jesus told them to remove their personal material, left gaps in the flow of dictation, and some sentences had to be rearranged. But Bill assured me, and I believe him without question, he's not lying, that nothing substantive was omitted and that the basic message was in no way altered by their editing choices. Bill's oversight was a governing factor, and he gave his imprimatur to all changes, all changes. Okay, so the imprimatur is like a thing somebody who certifies that it's right. So yeah. Jesus, did say, Bill was, kind of responsible for this, and Bill absolutely took responsibility to make sure that nothing happened that would change the course. So when when people then say, "Oh no, that's not right," and they go and put all that crap back in there, they're absolutely going against and by even implying that they lied. That's I sat uh, an auditorium with a Course in Miracles minister who just stood up and flat out, said they lied. Bill, Helen, and Ken, they all lied about the editing. This was, these things were rearranged without Jesus's authority, etc. And there are people in that room. I know Gary Renard was in that room. He got up and walked out. And it was, really shocking for a lot of people to hear that. But but this is how there are some who really believe that,
I don't
Ken
think anybody
lied.
lied now. I really don't.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't think they lied.
it's impossible to me. And
But the
I
book he
trust,
has, because I got it because I was taking a class a couple of years ago. It's still a beautiful book. I mean, I don't know why he did that, but I don't know if he wasn't, because who knows? The higher self could have said, well, then just bring this out.
yeah. And
It's
and
not,
the thing was beautiful about it. It was that Ken just said, okay. At the end, that last workshop that he did, he just like, all right, it doesn't matter, because as long as the teaching is the same, then who cares, what extra
what
notes
book
Helen
it
had.
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I happen to love Ken Wapnick, period. I love his work. So I do get where you're coming from because, I had that same feeling. And now it's kind of like, what difference does it make? None of it's true. The book is just a book. But I think
that's
that,
true.
people, they want so much to have a say, I guess, in this whole process. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. It wouldn't be me that would ever question it because I don't have that kind of intellect. So I would never question it. I wouldn't be like, I see that Robert Perry is a scholar like him. Like if you look at his stuff, he's bright. He's very whatever's coming through him. But
right.
again, he's he's just coming from his. And I think what John Mundy did is he brought Robert into his one of his a couple of his Sunday because he wanted to understand it. And I like that he's like that
Yeah,
rather than just to diminish it because that's what egos do. But
right.
to have everybody join, and be okay with because I have a couple books. I used to hold a group here, and people didn't like the course. They left their books with me. So I have a couple different course books because there's different, but they're all saying the same thing.
They're all saying the same thing. And if you didn't alter the fact that forgiveness is the way, and I mean, just me having this grievance. I mean,
Right.
seriously, it's a grievance in my mind, and I recognize that it's it's not helping me. You know,
Yeah, but our grievances are there. Actually, they're pointers to us. When you say that's not helping, no grievance help us, but we think it does. We think when we get angry, we're being helped.
right?
But I'm an anger repressor, so that's why I think I've had such a hard time with a lot of things recently because I just, I just my nature is to just want peace and just to get along with everybody, and I think that's where you're at too as a person.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
very much so, very much so. And
so
if
you're
if
sensitive.
I was in a room with the person, just as if I was in the room with Donald Trump, I would still love them because
You love him for who, yeah,
that's
for
my
his
nature. Love is my
right.
nature. I'm not going to let that change my nature.
Right. And I think Donald Trump is doing the best he can too. So,
Yeah, yeah, which, you have to give him a chance to
well, we all want him to succeed because if it succeeds,
yeah,
it'll help all of us. If we don't want him to succeed, then that's ridiculous.
right. We'll all fall. So,
Yeah.
let us hope the best for all our brothers.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So, in the beginning, the author, Jesus, specifically charged Bill to be responsible for the editing choices, with the author's consent, as Helen still found the entire scribing and editing process too disturbing. Additional factors help explain the disjointed impression. Helen strongly resisted the scribing process in the beginning, and Ken noted she was always trying to impress Bill. This scribing process was no different from other situations where she sought Bill's validation. Occasionally, sentences were inadvertently omitted, though added back later, during the typing and retyping process. And these weren't discovered until later when compared to Helen's notebooks and the text. The original notes Bill typed directly while Helen read her shorthand notes to him. Sometimes the material didn't come from the notes dictated earlier, but came to her directly while Bill was typing. She also occasionally skipped over some notes she had taken, not reading them to Bill at all, because she realized immediately that they were personal and should not be included, Helen explained. Oh, okay, this is the next sentence. So, yeah, I was going to say that, in Absence from Felicity, there's a lot of things that were dictated directly through Helen to Bill, that were not in the notes at all.
Yeah, when you look at the course, though, the one person I think this is just rumors I've heard that the course was really written for Bill Thetford because that he actually woke up exactly the way the course wanted him to. But I don't know if that's true. It's just
I
talk.
don't know either. Well, obviously I think it was written for me, so that's
Well, it is as long as you discern it through it. But some of the things, I mean, his awakening was what I would call perfect.
yeah,
Like, he just woke up. He just like said it's Independence Day and died.
yeah. Which maybe that's his awakening. He may have been awakened before that. I don't know. It's hard to tell. And hey, Regis, welcome, welcome. Okay, so Helen explained the text as it is given is unchanged except for the omission of the more personal material, which was included only at the beginning. Chapter headings and subdivisions have been added later, but the arrangement of the material, which seemed to fall naturally into these divisions, has not been altered. The workbook, which was dictated in the form of daily lessons, is presented as I took it down. So Helen is saying the book that the Foundation for Inner Peace published was the exact book, unchanged, except for the things that Jesus asked them to take out. And so I believe it. I believe her. I don't think she's lying. I can't imagine she would lie about a thing like
I
that.
don't think she would lie. No, I
What
just
would
don't
be the
see her.
purpose? Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. Um, so then Carol continues. In recent years, I've heard such pronouncements as, quote, the sacred and secret feminine teachings have been extracted from A Course in Miracles, unquote. This simply is not true. There's no cult of the feminine removed from the Course and reserved for a special few. Bill set the record straight, telling me that everything essential about A Course in Miracles remains as it was originally published. Finally, if you want to practice the Course, you have everything necessary to do so. In the early part of the text, the author states, I have made every effort to use words that are almost impossible to distort, but it is always possible to twist symbols around if you wish. So that's Jesus saying, I try not to, but you can do it. Obviously, anybody can screw this up if they want to. Because of the basic tenets of the Course are repeated so many times, you could remove half the content and everything needed would still be in place. Even though the several versions now available are slightly different from the most recent edition of A Course in Miracles published by the Foundation for Inner Peace, any edition chosen will foster the necessary, quote, unlearning, unquote, of the obstacles to peace of mind. Most importantly, if you fully experience even one lesson, you will have the whole course, since it's about forgiveness and radically changing our minds. For in-depth comparison of the various editions, I refer the reader to an article by Robert Perry in the Circle of Atonement website. And let's
Wow,
see.
she put that in there. Oh my
Yeah,
God. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let me go look here okay, no, I'm not going to go look it up, but she does say go check it out if you want to know. Uh, okay. Oh, and that is a comparison of the different editions. And I think that's even posted on the Foundation for Inner Peace website. I think you can go and find it there. Okay. So then to broaden his experience with non-traditional subjects, he always found interesting. I told Bill about the great therapeutic benefits of Rolfing. Whoa. And he indicated he was up for trying it. Have you ever had Rolfing, Sharon?
No, explain it to me. I don't even, I've heard of it, but I don't think I've ever had it. No.
Okay, Rolfing, this is great. I've had Rolfing and it is just amazing. What it is uh there's the fascia, the connective tissue that connects the ligaments and tendons to the muscles, that it's it's a whole system in your body that's this tissue. And what happens is when you get it gets upset or messed up or whatever, it causes there to be inflammation, and it causes changes in the body. It messes up things in the body. And so this lady, Ida Rolf, was a doctor. I think she was a pediatrician. And she found that when newborn babies, they do not have that connective tissue problem because they haven't worked their muscles and stuff and broken things and messed things up. So they don't have that. But as you get older, your connective tissue becomes more inflamed and dense, and you develop scar tissue, etc. And so, and then that causes like fibromyalgia and other things that have to do with your connective tissue. And so she figured out a way of, and it is a painful process, I tell you that, because I've had it done, of going in and feeling with your fingers, which is what these people do. They feel with their fingers to find the places where it's clumped up, and they break it apart. You physically pull it, break it apart. And by doing that, release the fascia so that it's no longer affecting the other tissues around it. And like I said, it's painful when they're doing it because they're in there digging around and pulling and pushing and doing some crazy stuff. It's all it's like chiropractic. You have to really go through a lot of training to be able to do it. But once that has been done, the release of the uh, the pain and the it just changes everything. Like I said, I had it done. I was
I would
shocked.
probably benefit from, but my fibro has definitely gone into some kind of remission now.
Yeah,
Not
you would probably benefit from it. I mean,
right.
I would suggest I loved it. And yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, once you recognize that all that stuff is so tight and clumped up that that's what's causing all these aches and pains, it's so wonderful to have it done. So Bill said, "Yeah, I'll go have that done." So yeah, that's cool. Our mutual, I'll continue. Our mutual friend Jason Kane, a world-class rolfer who personally studied with Dr. Ida Rolf, the genius behind the structural integration, was delighted to oblige. I would drive Bill to Jason's home in Boulder for a session, and he would emerge smiling and grateful. So would Jason. Those sessions were a real win-win exchange for both. Jason comments, "Well, it was delightful for so many reasons. One is because I just loved Bill and wanted to do for him whatever I could. Two things stand out. First, how much he appreciated it. He totally trusted me and put himself in my hands and was grateful. And he was very aware that it was helpful to him. So anytime I was ready, he was ready. But the biggest thing is that the first time I touched his body, I just saw this light. It was like working on this shell that was full of light. There was this human body, and inside that body was this bright white light. Wow, that's
That's
pretty amazing.
yeah. The whole thing is just amazing to me.
Wow. So Carol says, I asked Jason if this phenomena was more pronounced than with others he had worked on, and he replied, "Oh, absolutely. Here was somebody who was full of light, literally. When I gave him body work, his flesh was more than receptive. He welcomed me with gratitude. He literally put himself in my hands and asked without words for whatever help I could give. His yearning to heal and to open was tangible to my touch. His ability to yield and to trust was remarkable. His longing to experience defenselessness was always on duty." Wow. Yeah, because that's you have to be, when somebody's doing something like that to you, you have to be open to it. That's why, I go for a massage, and the massage that I go to for is very similar. They do the Oriental massage, they call it,
Do
and
they come to your house or do you
no, I go to them. They have a place in the mall here in Pueblo,
right?
and I just
Okay.
go there and man, they work on that body work they do is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it does it's breaking up those attachments. So yeah, it's beautiful. But when I go for that, I literally just work with the masseuse. I open myself and I loosen myself and I allow them to get in there, and they get in there with their elbows and knees and stuff. They're like really working it. It's they go by the um, like acupressure points, so it's like all on the meridians, and they do my feet as well. Um, I'm
The
telling you,
meridians are hooked up with the chakras, right? It would have to be.
yeah, yes, yeah.
I don't know enough. See, I'm just really learning in depth about these things. But the thing is, do we really need any? No, we don't need this. It just depends where you're guided to go, because nobody needs anything.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But if you can find ways to, because let's face it, the body is a distraction. And
Yeah.
the ego is so wrapped up in the body. I mean, our body thoughts are all, thoughts that the ego is impressing on us. So, getting through that distraction and being able to uh, be comfortable is pretty helpful to me anyway. So let's see, where are we at? Okay, we still have about 15 minutes. Okay. So
You want me to read now? I'll read
sure,
if you want.
yeah, okay.
Okay. Where'd you stop? I'm
We're
trying
at
to.
our fledgling ACIM group.
Okay. Yeah. And if Regis, are you there, or is he just a picture right now? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Because he could be in class. Yeah, who
I'm here.
knows?
We have a
Oh,
snow
you're
day.
here. I love your voice. I wish you would read too.
Oh yeah, he's there.
You
Do you
want
guys
to
have a
read?
snow day today, Regis?
Yeah, we got a snow day today.
Oh, I had an interesting day yesterday substituting Regis. It was just when you go in there, I heard you sharing last week about it, but they do make you feel very special. I mean, because
Yeah.
they just love having a substitute because they can't get them. That's what I'm seeing around here.
All right. So our fledgling ACIM
Oh, I
group,
love your voice. Yeah.
which had started in August 1978, was still gathering when Bill began his visits to Denver. He always attended our meetings, considering himself very much a fellow student, and was both supportive and curious. One of the early members recalled, he really seemed to accept us all as students of the course and was glad that we, as a group, had taken on this year of study together. It was not anything he precisely said, but it was certainly his manner. I remember feeling very accepted by him, not special, just accepted. Particularly in those days, I was somewhat in awe of him, thinking, this man is very bright. He has a PhD. He helped out a course in miracles together. So obviously, he's in a league different from mine, but I didn't have that feeling around him at all. He was nothing pretentious or ostentatious about him. There was nothing pretentious or ostentatious about him, nor did he look for flaws, nor did he look for flaws or shortcomings. He just genuinely accepted us all. Looking back, none of us really knew what we were getting into. I suspect in those days we were kind of pioneers. No doubt other people were doing something similar, but I thought the feeling from Bill of just being complimented for what we were doing. Keep going. Any comments?
I
Any
think
comments?
that's very cool because yeah, that he gave them the feeling of being equal.
Yeah. It almost made me tear up reading that part because uh sometimes I really think I go to places I think people expecting me to have a lot more to say. And I don't, and I'm just kind of there. I'm enjoying the people. There's no judgment. There's no looking for flaws. Everything is perfect as it is. Sometimes you be in environments, whether it's with the schools or whatever, uh, and people start apologizing for this not being perfect and this not being right. And I'm like, everything is fine. I don't see a problem here, And that I just love uh to read that about Bill, that like she said, it wasn't his words, it was just his presence. And people feel when they're being judged, and they feel when they're not being judged. And we sometimes I think we get lost in the delusion of thinking that we can have all of these judgmental ideas and feelings swirling inside of us, and it's not affecting the people around us, but it does. And my wife and I, we talk about it often in terms of like a child or a dog. If you have a dog or a baby, they know when you're gone into your head and your body is there, but your mind is gone somewhere else, and they'll start pulling on you. The dog will start barking, but as long as they sense that you are present, they're fine. They'll just play in their own space and be content. But if your mind drifts and you leave and you drifted way off into a story in your head, they can feel it. And so that's just beautiful to me that this person wrote that in words, that the thing about being around him was not his words, it was just his presence, the loving presence, that
The
non-judgmental
energy.
presence. I love that.
I do too. I like it. It's all because we're all energy. That's all we are.
Yeah,
So that we feel that we can feel a lot of things,
Well, and it's important for us uh, to help ourselves be that way. That's the thing. When you're in trust, and you're not in fear, then it's really easy to be open and kind with people because you're not suspecting they're going to do something to you, and
Right.
you're not worried about their motives. This is the work that we're doing here. This practicing forgiveness is learning how to just see the Christ in them. That's why I really love that, empathic, empathetic listening for the heart, because once you start listening for the heart, then you become uh, a kinder, gentler person, and then people can trust you. They're
yeah.
not afraid of you. And it, I know times when I make people afraid.
It
It,
seems like it seems like he just knew how to show up without a story. I mean,
yeah,
he didn't have a story of I'm Bill the PhD. He didn't have a story of, he just knew how to just show up as as a as a loving
Present.
being, without any story of right doing and wrong doing, or what things should be or how things shouldn't be, or who he was or who other people was. He just kind of just knew how to just come into a space and just be.
yeah,
There's something
yeah.
about him, even when you read, he just seemed like such a sweet soul, just sweet. There's just I don't know, I've always felt that way, just listening to him or,
Yeah,
he was very gentle to begin
yeah,
with, I think.
yeah. And it don't even seem like he had a motive. Like sometimes we have a motive. It really is an ego motive. It's a spiritual ego motive. But we have a motive where I want to go here and I want to show these people love.
Mm,
you know, but he didn't have any type of motive. He wasn't trying to prove nothing, show nothing. He just showed
Right.
up. Yeah,
yeah. I
You
don't
know
I don't
what's
think that was in his mind. He couldn't think of that kind of thought.
right.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I'm going to put him on a pedestal and then I'll have to drop him because I'm notorious for like always thinking the hot, I love to think good thoughts about people because those thoughts are my thoughts about me. So, it's just, and I do, I love them. Now,
You know, I
Helen and I could have had some issues. She wouldn't have liked my ADHD and all the other stuff that I have.
might have loved you. You don't know. She might have absolutely loved you, Sharon. And this is the thing, we don't give ourselves enough credit for being the love that we are.
Right,
You know,
right.
if and Regis was talking about, judging, people judging. That's the main uh problem. I talk a lot about, I don't talk a lot about it now, but at a time I did talk a lot about my situation when I worked with Regina, that I always felt like she was judging me. And I eventually turned out and recognized, oh, I was the one who was judging her. I was I was the one
Well,
who was looking at her thinking, she doesn't see me as good enough, and she doesn't see me as worthy. And I was the one who was making that story up. She never said a word like that to me. And
Yeah, but she had actions. I'll just call it out the way I saw it. She had actions with ignoring you a little bit. That's how I saw it.
right, but that was,
Just
my interpretation too. And, I recognize that, if I hadn't have been looking for it, that would never have occurred to me. And the reason I was looking for it was because I thought she was capable of being unkind. I thought she was capable of being unloving. And, once I recognized that that was my projection on her,
yeah,
it
that's what
had
I
nothing
think
to do with
too.
her at all.
Right. I projected too when she said, he's going to help you now, like when she was angry with me, because I said something, but it's still your projection. But at the same time, you know, there's certain people, and she has brought that up in her teaching, like certain people she'll be friends with and certain people she won't. And I don't think she and I have a lot in common. That's just something I saw from the beginning.
Yeah. And then let me just ask you that. When you felt like that, did you feel like you were being left out and rejected and not being loved the
No,
way
because I was
you?
never close with her like you were. Never. I never had really a relationship with Liz Cronkite is always the one that I tended to go to for more
Yeah,
advice. And Helen Hamilton's a lovely person. But remember, everybody has an ego. I mean, how
yeah,
can they not? If they wouldn't be here if they had no ego. So
right. Well,
there's certain
I'm
egos
just
I'm gonna like more than others. I Regis, like when he or and you, Lynn, you both have such soothing voices. Now Regina does too. I will say that because I used to listen to her and love her voice. Um, but I really like everyone. It's just that I think we're only seeing the past. So whenever I don't like somebody, who are they reminding me of who hurt me in the past? Because that's all
right.
we're doing all day long is just unraveling our past.
Exactly, exactly. And none of it's true.
Right.
So, why are we beating ourselves up over something that never happened? You
I
know,
think the
it's
fear of God, I guess. I mean, that's the only thing I can come up with. I feel like, I've never said that before because I always thought I didn't fear God. But honestly, I wouldn't be here if I didn't fear God.
right.
That's what basically Ken says too.
Yeah.
So, now I think Regis, you had a very strong religious background before you started the course. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, I could feel that. That was like an energy that I felt when I met you. And that I didn't have that, but it's I'd love to hear more about your story. Maybe we can do that next time, period. Because I kind of like I was always by myself years ago when you did, Thankful Friday, was it?
Festive
I
Thankful
think
Friday.
Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't miss any of it and I lived by myself at the time. I wasn't married or anything, but I looked so forward to our Friday nights, and I loved Ruby.
Oh yeah.
I just loved them all. I was just
Cliff.
Yeah, but I didn't speak much in the groups. I just got fed. Another person that I loved was Cheryl Valentine. I loved her. I couldn't wait till she was on. And when she passed, we were in the room. Did you know her, Regis? Cheryl?
Just a little, yeah. But I remember her name. Yep.
Oh, I loved her. And
Yeah.
so when she died, right away, Regina was our leader. And Dove said, okay, we won't say anything else. And I was comfortable with that because I'm so emotional. I was sitting there crying. So I was, because I didn't know her as well as I know you guys, but I knew her enough to talk to her on the phone. And I just found it very, I guess, sad at the time. And I don't have the nature, I'm more of a real feeling person than Regina. So when she would tell us all, like, do you remember that, Lynn? Were you there that day when Dove said, we all like were crying and then she went like this, stop. And everybody stopped. Maybe you don't remember.
No, I
Yeah.
don't remember that. No,
That was
but
something that was like, wow, why would he do that? Why did he just, because we're all different. But here's the thing, the things that you remember or a person remembers is things that have happened to you where somebody has cut you off from your feelings. And that was
yes,
huge for me growing up, huge.
yep. That's why
So,
that emphasis on feelings is
right.
so right on. I mean,
Well, that's why I love Marshall. When you
yeah,
like Regis, if you can make it on Monday nights, we're doing the and I love it. We're, nonviolent communication, and I still want to meet Tracy. So tell me when you're going to bring her to the group.
Oh yeah, for sure.
She doesn't like groups, or she's just too tired when she comes home.
No, it's not that. It's just her lifestyle. I mean, ever since you all knew me, even from the festive Friday days, uh, I was working full time, but I'm just a different breed of breed of human experience. I don't I'm not vested in life, and you have to respect that people most people are vested in life in what makes life work for them, what life
Right.
should be like. And but I'm a laid back uh soul. Like I was available on Friday nights. I was available on Saturdays. We used to have a lot of Saturday activities, live activities all day, Saturday evening, Sundays. But uh
Well, Dove
this
made
is
that happen too. I just loved it.
yeah.
I loved that whole, it was 7 days a week. And my friends from around here, they would like, why don't you want to go out? I'd say, I have things to do and gather. It would be like, you don't even know these people. And I'd say, yes, I do. I love them. So yeah, I just
I
missed
was
them.
thinking about the serenity prayer before I logged into here this morning. And as you just have to, at a point, the wisdom to know the difference between uh what's really important and what's not. What's and and uh people used to say, even from young, that I had an old soul. uh Even I remember as a boy, like in junior high, uh in Sunday school, in like the old church mothers, they would be like, "Oh, look at him, he's got an old soul." But that ability to just um sometimes just see through all the minutia of life, and go for what's important, go for what really has depth, what really has meaning. uh I feel, we all have time. We all have time. I always say time is happening through us, not to us. And so, uh, but it's just your perception and how you see yourself, and what you see uh, as being important. But anything that we want to do, that we want to be a part of, nothing has ever stopped me. It's like, I'm substitute teaching. I accepted a full-time role, and here I am today. you know, it's a snow
What's
day,
your
but
what's your degree in? Are you a
but
teacher? Are
I'm a
you a teacher?
communications major.
Okay, so you get paid the same as if somebody with a degree now, right? Because
Oh
they
yeah,
need
yeah.
some.
I get paid the yeah, and then you get more money if you take a permanent job. So I didn't know any of that till after the fact. It was like, oh,
Right.
you're gonna get more money, right? I'm like, okay. So
But you look
I
young. How old are you, Regis?
All right, no, I'm going to turn off the